The next decade would begin with the basics of another two 335-meter layouts in Turkey and Italy's Rainbow Magic Land. That park would also get a custom mine train named Olandis Volant, with 2 lifts and many dips and turns. A pair of coasters would open in China, including the first giant inverted boomerang in nearly a decade at Jinjiang Action Park, and the last traditional motorbike coaster at Happy World. This custom indoor layout would launch out of the mall and over a hill, and into a turn back indoors around the small rides in the park. The final 2 coasters would be a new model, which would combine Vekoma's 2 most popular layouts into one. Bringing the back and forth shuttle sensation to children, the Family Boomerang would debut as Ben 10 Ultimate Mission at Drayton Manor and Simply Boomerang at Parc des Combes. The standard junior coaster trains would be brought backwards up a spike with drive tires before dropping through the station into a simple figure-8 layout and up a spike with a hump parallel to the lift, and complete the course in reverse. This original 185-meter layout was again a move in the right direction for Vekoma, to evolve with another smooth and unique coaster perfect for families. "2012 would begin with, no, I thought this was over. After 6 years and seemingly the end of the over 30-year-old design, the Boomerang would return with Stress Express at Fantawild Adventure. The only saving grace would be this being the first standard coaster to feature the new vest restraints for a smoother ride, beginning a new wave of boomerangs. The only other coaster of the year would be a good one at least, with a welcome return to working with Disney. Like their last project, this would be the second and final large-scale mine train, as an addition to Hong Kong Disneyland. Big Grizzly Mountain runaway mine cars would not feature the massive mountain of Expedition Everest, but rather stay low to the ground and carve through mine trenches. The coaster would drop straight out of the station into some twists, before a lift and the first introduction to animatronic bears who would cause mischief throughout the course. After some faster turns, the train would climb a second lift, before a cable seemingly breaks, dropping the train through an extended backwards section with a switch track. After pausing for another short show scene, the train would complete a quick LIM launch into a fast-paced low-to-the-ground section through trenches, geysers, and rockwork before returning to the station. The next year would begin with yet another vest restraint boomerang at Fantawild Dreamland, followed by 3 inverted coasters. Freedom Flyer would open at Fun Spot Orlando as a family inverted coaster with the 395-meter layout of Kavastan, and would be joined by Orkanen at Farup Summerland. While it took Vekoma many years to get their tracking right, this new 453-meter layout would finally perfect the model's smoothness, and feature an exciting layout with a drop underwater into a steep overbank turn, followed by more gentle twists after. The final would be a new model, and the only installation of its kind. A few attempts were made in the early 2000s of small inverted coasters with water guns equipped, marketed as a ride between riders and bystanders. Vekoma would revive this concept for the Yas Waterworld water park in Abu Dhabi, with a much more advanced and well-built coaster than the similar rides before it. Small 4-passenger trains would equip each rider with laser guns, which were able to blast targets around the course to drench onlookers, as well as containing a large water tank at the front of the train, which could dump on guests on the ground. The layout itself would feature 2 lift hills and fly over water slides, paths, rivers, and pools in a fantastic family-pleasing attraction. Also, because I know people will ask and I'm not sure where else to put this, now seems like a good time to discuss the mysterious Dive Pretzel Coaster model. Planned to open along with a custom motorbike coaster at the Great Mall of China, This model looked to be Vekoma's attempt at a combination of a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, a Schwarzkopf Looper, and the Intamin Space Diver. Seen with 4-across seating similar to Human on Battlestar Galactica, this coaster would begin up a vertical lift, but the layout after remains a mystery, with many conflicting layout concepts online. The status of both of these coasters remains unknown, with the track seen at Vekoma's factory in 2017, but no knowledge of what happened since. "2014 would sadly see the last giant inverted boomerang installed with Quantum Leap at Russia's Sochi Park, as well as Vekoma's last coaster for Universal with the 335-meter Flight of the Hippogriff at Universal Studios Japan. More junior coasters would open around Asia, with another 395-meter suspended in South Korea and the next family boomerang in India. The major coaster of the year would be yet another coaster for Disney, Vekoma's 12th for the company. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train would open at Magic Kingdom with yet another reinvention of the classic model. This time, the trains would rock side to side to give the sensation of being in ore cars, in cute 20-passenger trains. The coaster would dip out of the station into a lift before some swinging turns lead into a show scene with the 7 little men. After climbing another lift, the trains would double down into a slightly faster section to swing the trains a bit more before the finale at the cottage. The Vest Boomerangs would continue into 2015 with 2 more Stress Express coasters in China before a handful of junior coasters, including 2 at Vin Wonders in Vietnam. Ocean Train Coaster would be the first 207-meter junior in over a decade, and Flying Dolphin Coaster would be another family boomerang with an either cute or creepy lead car, depending on who you're asking. The 453-meter suspended coaster would see 2 more installations, with Galaxy Express in China, but more importantly, audiences in Poland would be introduced to Dragon Roller Coaster at Energylandia. This would be the first of many Vekoma coasters at this new park, and would be joined this year by Energous, a 335-meter junior, and Roller Coaster Mayan, the first standard SLC in a while. Thankfully, this and Death Rail at Al Zawra Land would both feature the new vest restraints at least. The stress would not stop in 2016, with yet another 2 Stress Express boomerangs, followed by 2 more 395-meter suspended family coasters in Ukraine and England. This year would also introduce 2 new family boomerang layouts, with the new 208-meter opening first on Velociraptor at Paulton's Park, with a drop through and over the station before a spike in the opposite direction of the lift. The second would be custom, and open in the brand new land of Klugheim at Phantasialand, wrapping around a section of the incredible Intamin coaster Terran. Sharing the same dark color scheme of the High Thrill coaster, the trains would rise into a small building and drop into a twisting hill before a quick low-to-the-ground section and a spike parallel to the lift. Mine Adventure would be another 785-meter mine train at Vin Pearl Land, and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train would be a clone of the coaster a few years before, but at the brand new Shanghai Disneyland. Joining Seven Dwarfs would be Tron Light Cycle Power Run, a revival of the booster bike coaster from the past, but with an LSM launch. Featuring more advanced but uncomfortable trains, riders would blast 60 miles per hour into a large turn outside, before returning inside the grid for some turns with fun screen effects to mimic racing other bikes. The largest coaster of the year would be yet another at Energylandia, and possibly be Vekoma's biggest coaster yet. After years of improving every aspect of their coaster's comfort, trains, and smoothness, and observing how other manufacturers such as Intamin, RMC, and Mach had been squeezing more elements into compact layouts, it was their time to unveil their splash in the industry. Utilizing a brand new 2x2 train chassis and new restraints with vests, really showing just how far Vekoma had come, the train would pull into a tunnel with a bunch of Formula One driver figures. Smoke pours in and the train accelerates to 50 miles per hour into a sidewinder before perhaps Vekoma's first element designed for pure airtime. After charging through a corkscrew, the train would complete another unique element, an outer banked hill, which had only been done by Rocky Mountain Construction before, which would dump the trains in the opposite way. After a final corkscrew, the trains would complete a couple more final hills and turns before the brakes. This new smooth, intense, and compact space warp layout gave parks around the world a taste of what a new generation of design could look like from this much laughed at company, and opened the door for Vekoma to build larger and more ambitious layouts in the future. Before we start talking about 2017, we have to go way back in time. Remember the junior coaster in South Africa with the 247-meter layout back in 2001? Of course you don't. But anyway, that coaster would close around 2008 and would be relocated to Kid City in Indonesia with the name Crazy Cab Coaster in 2015. Apparently, this coaster was the most incredible thing Indonesia had ever seen, because 2 years later, a staggering 15 would open all across the country at various Kid City and Trans Studio mini parks. 7 of these would be named Crazy Cab Coaster, with another 7 named Crazy Taxi Coaster, and the final being named just Crazy Coaster. These would all sport the red, yellow, and blue color scheme of the relocated coaster, with more modern taxi-themed trains. These would all have fairly similar theming, but most strikingly, all would do a turn that would go outside the upstairs indoor parks. How Vekoma was able to produce all these coasters for 1 year, I don't know, but even more crazy, they weren't done, with another 10 coasters opening on top of that. Many of these would be junior coasters, with 2 more 335 meters in Vietnam and China, as well as another 4 family boomerangs. Another of the original 185-meter layout would open in China, along with 3 more of the new 208-meter layout in Sweden, the UAE, and Energylandia. 3 suspended coasters would open, with Little Dragon's Flight using the 395-meter junior layout in Vietnam, Galaxy Express with the newer 453-meter layout in China, and Queen Cobra, the last ever suspended looping coaster, would open with the most common 689-meter layout at Vietnam's Asia Park. While these 24 coasters for the year already shattered Vekoma's record for their most in a year, their final coaster, and the only one with a custom layout of the year, would put a true exclamation point on 2017. While Energylandia was getting all of the company's attention in Poland, a small park named Legendia an hour away sought to make a statement for themselves. Challenging Vekoma to build their most intense layout yet, Let Coaster would be a perfect experiment for Vekoma to keep innovating with a new model they called the Bermuda Blitz. Using the same trains as Formula but with a lift hill, this would outdo the Space Warp in every stat and begin with an absolutely wild, steep twisting drop into a cave. The train would then rocket through a reverse sidewinder and 2 airtime hills before a fast corkscrew through the station. With intensity turned up to 11, the train would then fly through more hills and turns and a final corkscrew before charging into the brakes. While the ride gave coaster enthusiasts the ferocity they crave, Vekoma learned this may be their limit, as while this was still potentially their best coaster to date, everything after would turn down the intensity to a more comfortable and fun level. Indonesia realized they still didn't have enough 247-meter junior coasters, so in 2018, 5 more would open with the Crazy Taxi or Crazy Cab theme. Along with those would be the classics, another Stress Express Boomerang in China, and another, potentially final, 785-meter mine train named Lost Valley at Vietnam's Vinh Wonders. That park would also receive another 453-meter suspended family coaster named Desert Twister, and across the world in Mexico, the final 395-meter suspended coaster would open on top of a mall named Insomnio. Finally, this year would see a custom family boomerang layout, and this time it would not just be one coaster, but 2 intertwined. Tweestreed would open at the Wildlands Adventure Zoo, and take both trains backwards up the lifts with parallel spikes. After dropping, the trains would turn in opposite directions into a head-to-head flyby before going up 2 more parallel spikes and completing the layout in reverse. "2019 would begin with maybe, hopefully, finally, the last boomerang ever installed with another Stress Express at Silk Road Dreamland. 35 years after the model had been introduced and 53 installations later, the original layout that put Vekoma on the map may finally be over, bringing its old track and train style with it. Poetic, really, as this end of an era would be met with another year of embracing the future and modern, smooth, and incredible designs. This would begin with somehow 4 more 247-meter Crazy Taxis in Indonesia, bringing the total to 25 across the country. Energylandia would see all of these and go, sure, we'll take one too, making Frida the 6th Vekoma in the park and the 4th junior-style coaster. These junior coasters would be joined by a 335-meter in China, a 208-meter family boomerang in Vietnam, and 2 more 453-meter suspended family coasters at Dollywood and Oriental Heritage. This wouldn't be all for the Chinese park, as they would debut a new model as a follow-up to the Bermuda Blitz from years before. This model would be named the Hyper Space Warp, and begin with an identical layout to the original Space Warp formula from years before, but with a chain lift instead of a launch. Instead of hitting the brakes after a steep turn, the train would complete 3 more banking hills and dive underground to keep the momentum. This would be named Celestial Gauntlet, with another opening as Flying Dragon at Oriental Legend as well.